Welcome to All Nature Connected, a podcast created by the Forest Bathing Institute where we explore all nature connected topics, including nature and health, nature inspired lifestyle, nature connection and forest bathing, nature preservation, and eco awareness. We hope that this podcast will inspire you to become more connected with nature and your own health and well being.
Hello everyone, this is Olga from the Forest Bathing Institute. Today we have a special guest from the Quiet Parks organization, Ulf. And if you would like, Ulf, to introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit more about the organization that you work in and what's the general idea behind Quiet Parks.
Yeah, nice to be on this pod. My name is Ulf Bohman and I live in Sweden, up north in the mountains. And I've been involved with Quiet Parks International for 7 years now. And Quiet Parks is basically an organization that wants to protect quiet in the wilderness and quiet in the urban space too. And it was a bunch of sound recordists in the US that started the organization. And then it became more a global organization in the next step. And the major starting point was that it is hard to find quiet. And in the US, it said that in the wilderness, in their national parks, it's very hard today to find what we defined as quiet. So that was the starting point. And then it's kind of been a growing movement trying to protect quiet, both in the cities and in the wilderness.
Wow, that's, we've spoken before, and the thing is, I think there is emerging science definitely about how the sounds of nature can help us relax and what they can do to our even mental health and well-being. Like a recent study we had by the King's College London here in the UK, it showed that birdsong can actually help with rumination of thought and also some of the psychological measurements they took also with the mood. So it's interesting how it is such a big topic. It seems to be that even in our study with the University of Derby, we actually measured the nervous system activity. And we found that some of the highest reading, meaning that people felt most relaxed during some 3 episodes during our forest bathing sessions, but especially one of them was listening to the sound of the running water. So the sound element was present there. And of course, in our forest bathing sessions, this is one of the senses that we use quite often, but the difficulty is, of course, that for some areas there is more sound pollution. And in a sense, looking at everything that we've done here in the UK so far, and also looking at some of the signs, it seems that the sound is such an incredible area of work that is, I think, now booming or starting to boom because more and more studies are coming out. Yet it is still, I would say, underdeveloped or under research, as many of the areas are. We would, of course, like things to move much faster, but there is so much coming out at this moment, and it is so incredibly exciting to see your organization already doing it for so long. And I know you are present in many countries, also including UK. Are you present in the UK? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And and the work that you are doing is really inspiring. So for me also to find out that there is already established community of people who raise awareness and lead sessions. It's really something that I think we could all learn more about. So in a sense, I wanted to ask you a bit more about your organization's work. So you did mention that you started in the US, and you started as with some of the specialists in the sound. So from there, could you explain a little bit more about some of the maybe key projects you are currently working on in Sweden, or maybe in some other areas? I know you are doing a lot with land managers and landowners to raise awareness. You're also running regular silent walks. So maybe you could talk about some of the key projects of your organization that you currently have.
Yeah, I think I mentioned my part of the organization is more into the urban side of it, because I've been working with projects, a lot of them in Stockholm, with the city of Stockholm, and trying to find all the quiet spots in and around the green areas of Stockholm, and try to kind of change the viewpoint from not only working with noise, but working with protecting quiet, working from the quiet and protecting it rather than taking away noise. And that's kind of what we've been doing in other places too. So we have now projects in Australia that work the same way too, that we both try to find urban parks and protect them and evaluate them, but also in the wilderness. In the wilderness, you could in a way say, okay, it's easy to find quiet, and we have a definition of quiet that's you should be able to sit in the wilderness for 15 minutes and not hear any man-made sounds, which in the US, national parks and green areas are very hard because of air traffic. I think in where I am, in the northern part of Sweden and Scandinavia, it's much easier to find those 15 minutes. But we also try, like you mentioned, to create more awareness of the need for quiet. So we have started this silent walk, sound walk project to bring people out into nature and start listening. So you could say it's a very light version of forest bathing. It's a shorter version, and it's kind of maybe more easier to get people to go out and just do the short walk. So that's one of our projects that's ongoing right now, that we try to make into a global event and try to raise awareness of the need for quiet that way. We also work with some states in the US evaluating their green areas, giving out sound maps for different areas. So we have some more specific. We've done the same in Canada too for the National Park Service. Because it's been kind of an area, if you talk to park managers and park people, they sometimes aren't that aware of the soundscape of the park. It hasn't been a big topic yet. I mean, you want a nice park and you want the right ecology inside the park, but sometimes it's been a bit of a missed area, the sound area.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is there emerging science or something that you maybe have come across that shows how sound is linked to the ecology, or maybe to how we feel in nature? Can you maybe share something, or share your observations maybe from the projects you've done about how it feels to be in areas with less sound pollution?
Yeah. And I mean, it is an evolving area for research, how wildlife, how birds are affected by noise. Hasn't been that many studies before, but there are quite a few now, where you both see the change of how they migrate and where they stop the birds and how they act according to the noise levels in different areas. So it is kind of slowly emerging more and more, but we still know more about how we humans are, like you mentioned, how we are affected by noise than how the wildlife is affected. So hopefully we get more and more knowledge on that area too.
Maybe sharing your experience or experience of the people you worked with, how did you find those quiet walks or projects with raising awareness about the sounds in the space? How do you feel? What's the difference between, say, a place where you have a lot of man-made sound and some quiet place in wilderness where there are fewer man-made sounds? Have you noticed any difference for yourself or maybe for the people whom you worked with? Why in a sense would that be better for us than going to very noisy with lots of human sounds place?
I mean, I think the easiest and in many ways the way of feeling how the sounds affect you that almost everyone has felt is walking from a busy street into a park. If you walk from the normal noise of a city and just into a park, you relax. You start listening. You lower your shoulders. So I think that's something everyone has sensed. But on the other side, city parks can never be totally quiet. You always have a hum of the city, hum of traffic, sometimes in the background. So we can't expect the same level of quiet in a city park, of course, than in the real wilderness. But I
Yeah.
think everyone has, and it's also important sometimes that we have to start discuss the change and the difference between the cityscape and the green area. It's not about exact decibels, what's quiet, but if we walk into a less noisy green area, we have the same effect, and it doesn't really matter exact decibels in that park.
Interesting. Yeah. I really liked how you said protecting the quiet rather than taking away noise, because I think in a sense if we just focus on the quiet bit, then it can be a bit sad to see that how few places would actually have that totally quiet 15 minutes you sit and you can't hear any noises. I don't think in the UK, maybe on some remote islands, you will be able to find something like this, but we generally wouldn't have many places like this, even in the countryside. There are often flight pathways. So, in a sense, can you please then talk a little bit more about how would you prevent encourage protecting that quiet in a city like Stockholm? I know you've done a few projects with the landlords, and how would you focus more on that protection of the quiet rather than worrying about the sounds that you can't necessarily take away?
Yeah. So our main aim is to award the parks. Because if we evaluate them as quiet, if we find the sites inside the park that offer a level of quiet, and then award the park, then it's something they want to keep and want to protect. So that's been our major strategy to award both wilderness parks and city parks. And when you then get the city planners and the city management involved, and you have this stamp of, okay, this is a quiet park. Hopefully, it gets a higher level of protection in the future for infrastructure project or whatever happens. Because I mean, we kind of need to set the level and say, okay, we need to keep these quiet parks.
And I'm curious, when you go to a landowner, because one thing I know you do help is helping raise awareness, but also helping other people, general people who don't have to own the land. It's brilliant if you own the land and would like to apply for this award for the quiet park in your area or quiet area in your that you own. But even if you just live by the park, you can also, I know that the organization helps consulting with how you can then apply for that award or certification, or just raise awareness with your local authorities and landowners. So I was going to ask, so what's the general procedure? How do you go about, in a sense, talking the authorities into this idea of the quiet park, and what would you then need to maybe eliminate in terms of possible risks? You talk about infrastructure, which is a major thing in where we are, because there's so little nature left, and it's constantly under the attack from different infrastructure projects that are being agreed. And other things, maybe you can also talk about what are the dangers that these parks have in terms of remaining quiet.
Yeah, we usually we have a set of volunteers all over the world that can go in and evaluate the park, and we usually start that way from some of our volunteers that said, okay, this is a park that should be protected, that offer a certain level of quiet. And the next step is to involve the park management and to hopefully get them to be a part of the real evaluation, where you look more closely into what level of quiet is this. It's not always easy. Sometimes they see it as just another problem. But if we get them involved, then it's usually the easiest way to go on. I mean, in some US park, we have the volunteer doing all the work, and then they work with the Friends of the Park, this non-profit organization that try to protect the park. And not until all that was done and it was a lot of involvement in it, then the park management realized, okay, this is a good thing to be seen, that, okay, we protect this. So you can't really say it's a straightforward road to award a park or protect a park. It's usually starts with someone that sees that this has the potential to be called a quiet park.
These volunteers, would they like measure decibels, or how would they generally, they would just go and kind of see the environments and maybe listen to the sounds around? Would there be a kind of criteria for measuring whether your park would be possible to make it a quiet park or not?
Yeah, we have a set of criteria, but we usually always start with just being in the park. Because, I mean, it's using all your senses. It's not only about decibels. And nature isn't totally quiet. I mean, we have the sound of the birds and the sound of the wind and the leaves and everything. So decibels is just one thing, but it's the total sense of that park. And then after that, if you have that, then we can go on and do some more measurements and set levels for what is quiet. And it's important to say too that it's never the entire, when it comes to city parks, urban parks, it's never the entire park that's quiet. It's usually you can find sites inside the park that offer a level of quiet. The edges of the park is usually quite noisy if you have a city park.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's really nice that you actually put some differentiation between different. You don't look for pristine environments, in a sense that there probably isn't pristine ones, sadly. Maybe just very rare. And I think looking at the current state that we are in terms of environments and nature depletion as well, being a bit more realistic. And I really love that you we use different modalities. For us, for instance, it's forest bathing. For some other countries as well. For you, it's quiet parks and quiet spaces. But it feels like it's just another way to help preserve those places. It's conservation work through that other modality that we're very excited to, continue working with you and maybe finding out more about how we can also include this aspect in terms of the work we're already doing and maybe future projects. And maybe some of our listeners are also interested in that specific aspect, a specific aspect of being in nature. Maybe the sounds of nature is something that you felt drawn to more than other elements in nature, and you would like to find out more. So you can always look at Quiet Park's website, which is quietparks.org, and I'll put some information underneath also the video so that you can find more about that. And yeah, I think we will be continuing the conversations, but I wanted to ask you if you can please tell us more about how where we can find out about becoming a member, maybe learning how to lead silent walks. This is something that I know you do, that you said it's a bit more like an introduction to, maybe it's a bit like a lighter version of forest bathing as you're mainly focusing on sounds. Maybe you can tell us about a bit about how people can, if they want to lead those, where they are, or maybe how you can find out more about protecting the parks or the areas around you, or maybe your own land, and awarding certain certification that would help protect that area for conservation projects.
Yeah. So last year we started this Soundwalk project with the aim to take people out in the parks, not only in the awarded parks, but at any park close to you, and just by listening in certain steps, being more aware and creating more awareness around it. So we have the ambitions to do this like a big global project. We have one day in September. That's kind of our focus to have as many places around the globe as possible. And we have a few places where people have done this quite a lot, and we have quite an experienced bunch of people around it. So, and we see as you that work with forest bathing, basically we have the same idea of getting people out in nature and creating more awareness. So our idea would be to join forces for anyone that see, okay, this could be an interesting addition to what you already do. Also to maybe introduce people to forest bathing too in the same time, and maybe also create the awareness about your local park when it comes to sound and the level of quiet. You can, like you said, you can find more information about this on the Quiet Parks website. And we also do virtual workshops introducing the sound walks. And like you said, it's kind of an easy version, light version of a forest bathing. So I think everyone that has a forest bathing training is going to find it okay. I know this. It's just a shorter version of what I already do.
That's brilliant. And yeah, I would love to join one of your silent walks. Are you in the UK at all, or are you mainly in Sweden and US?
No, we kind of adding volunteers all the time. We have quite a few now in the UK, and basically almost on every continent. So we have Africa, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Australia. We have a few in South America too. So it's kind of trying to do a lot of media around it when we do it in September to lift the need for quiet and going out into nature and listening.
That's brilliant. So yeah, I guess all the information then people can find on your website where there are guides and whom they can connect to. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then there's how to connect with me on the website too, so you can
Yeah,
get more
because
info.
you also offer consultations, is that correct? For if people want to start something, then there will be information, but also if they want to protect an area for from, sounds, then you can consult people on how to do that. Is that
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's kind of our main task to help and support in ways that we can protect quiet.
Beautiful. I think one last question. I was actually curious myself in terms of your definition of man-made sounds, because interestingly, one of the things, and I think you also talked about how you do those silent walks, and it's more about, again, the focus is not on making it absolutely quiet, but just protecting the quiet, but also kind of accepting that there might be some man-made sounds, especially if you're in a park. But in terms of your definition, I was curious because for last year, I think it was the Oxford Dictionary, they added into the definition of nature humans. So now they're accepting, and it's in language we're accepting, starting to accept that we as humans are part of nature. So in a sense, I'm curious that whether your definition of man-made sounds would actually include humans ourselves, or would it be more like man-made non-human sounds, such as the equipment, maybe planes, traffic, etc. So would you be able to explain a bit more what your definition is currently?
I think it's exactly like you said. Our definition of man-made sound is the external ones that uh, cars, everything we do outside our bodies, but the sounds we make ourselves from our breath or our steps on the trail, or those are part of nature. And I mean that's part of a sound walk too, to listen to your own sounds that you produce yourself. So we make that distinction. Your internal production of sounds that you make here and now, that's part of the natural world and nature's sound. It's more the all the other all the all the noise we make secondary.
And I'm curious, like, because I know that in Stockholm you have even some areas where you have maybe those signs to encourage people to be more quiet, to listen to the sounds of nature. So would you still, like, in a sense, you would still encourage people in some those areas that are protected, maybe to not speak so loudly or not shout, and just kind of decrease the volume or that they talk at? Or would it be generally just preservation of that area for from the secondary man-made sounds?
Yeah, it's mainly preservation of the area. And we hope that those small signs we have out that kind of mention that this is considered a quiet place makes people quiet for a moment and just listening. So it's not a mandatory quiet spot. I know we have a very active woman in Taiwan that, I mean, it's a crowded country, and she does these quiet walks, and they try to focus in their information that this is a quiet trail or this is a quiet site in the park. But of course, they can't force people to be quiet. But by informing and by creating an awareness of this site, this trail has something special, be quiet and listen.
This is beautiful. Thank you, Ulf. And I'm really interested to learn more about your work and or maybe participate take part in one of the silent walks where we are. And we are also thinking of doing a workshop, aren't we, about telling people more about what you do and how people can join your movement and volunteer and become silent walks guides. So we are still agreeing the details, but there will be information. So watch out for any linked posts to this interview, because we will be coming up with the workshop dates, and we will let you know, and you are welcome to join if you would like to learn more. So thank you very much for today. It was it was such a pleasure to learn more about your work and your amazing organization. So I'll put all the details about where people can find more about your organization, the work you do, and also the social media, just to follow up on the news. So hope you find this interview inspiring as I did. So thank you everyone for listening, and thank you all for joining us today.